feels like somehow I'm cursed. My name is Matthew Kroll.
And the photos are like a time machine. My name is Shahir Dowd.
And this is the only podcast about movies, specifically the film Blue Heron.
Blue Heroine.
No, Heron.
Blue Heron is what...
confused with the boy and the Blue Heron.
That is true, but also what Walter White would be selling if he had survived by now.
Heroin, yeah, the blue,
Did I just spoil Breaking Bad?
I mean, yeah, but
you know.
if you didn't know that Breaking Bad was about Walter White selling heroin, I don't know how to help you.
No, but I said at the end, if Walter White was still around.
He could have gone on vacation. You're talking about it more, and now it's making it worse.
I've drawn attention to it. What's the Barbara
Streisand effect?
The Streisand effect. Yeah, that's what I've done. Anyway, welcome to the show. I am actually excited to do this one because it is a little bit off the beaten path for our podcast.
Not for us, but for some
well, and actually there is a thematic tie to it. Today it was announced Curry Barker, who directed Obsession, which we did a few weeks ago, has found a $10 million deal, first look from a studio, sight unseen on whatever his next film is.
Amazing.
Because that movie is doing so well right now.
Also, that was last week we did that movie.
Was it last week?
Yeah.
Okay, well, there you go.
Yep.
But we've recorded, and just so you know, listeners, we've recorded a couple of episodes in between that as well. And we've been talking about it. And we've seen a couple of movies since then because we are trying to get ahead of our schedule.
The housekeeping is insane here because the summer is nuts, but you will get an episode every week. We promise you.
We promise you. There was an interesting tweet. There's been an interesting. I've finally gone back onto Twitter, but not as I'm not posting. I'm just kind of observing.
You're lurking.
I'm lurking on Twitter, and there's been a few interesting observations this week when it comes to first-time directors. First off, Curry, there's been this sort of slide insinuation with Curry Barker and with Kane Parsons, who directed Backrooms, that those movies were ghost directed. By the way, I want to say very clearly up front, I do not endorse this idea at all, and I don't think this is actually what happened. Mark Duplass has come out and defended Kane Parsons on this case, and I also think there's an air of how would I describe it, blind insinuation just for the clicks when it comes to people talking about it. So I'm only just talking about it as an observation of things that are happening right now.
Sure.
So there was an insinuation that Kane Parsons had a ghost director working on Backrooms for him, which Mark Duplass again denied. And then Curry Barker was kind of thrown into that mix as well when it came to Obsession. People were talking about somebody, these kids are so young, somebody must have ghost directed it.
And also with things like Obsession, it's people that are taking the wrong message from that movie are also people I'm sure would fall down rabbit holes
Certainly, yeah. But then they kind of lead me to this interesting tweet about Blue Heron, which is also a first-time filmmaker. She's
done shorts before, right?
They've done short. So Sophie Romveri, all of her shorts, I think there's 10 of them, are available on the Criterion channel. I watched about half of them this week, just kind of in preparation for this. They are terrific. It's interesting. I'm not sure how the Criterion collection cultivates shorts from a new filmmaker like this, like how that process works, because they seem sort of how do I say this?
I don't know. I don't know where you're going.
Just they're very good short films. I'm sort of curious how they were chosen. If you go to Criterion, it's like an entire curated selection.
Do you want to start talking about Walter White again?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, it's like an entire curated selection of her short films, and they're great. I was just oh, how did that happen? That's an interesting thing, and I was unsure about the mythology about Sophia Rombari in terms of where she came from.
Totally.
Yeah. But actually what is fascinating about that is it's such a great resource to have them on the Criterion channel if you do go see Blue Heron, because then you will then be able to come back and watch some of these, which also fill in some details about what the events that happened in Blue Heron as well.
Okay.
But it did lead me to this tweet, which was, I want to make sure I credit these correctly. But Shanadonia tweeted, I explained the premise of Blue Heron at the tattoo shop the other week, and everyone was like, wow, that sounds like a bad time. People show out for horror because it's audacious, asks little of its audience, and extremely easy to market, not because it's low-budget indie. And then Sophia Rombari tweeted, posted this again and said, someone told me I made the feel-bad movie of the year, which is an honor I wear with pride.
I actually don't know if this is...
No, look, I again, take Twitter. You know, everyone's got hot takes on Twitter. I don't think it's the feel bad movie of the year. It actually made me feel very uplifted and kind of ponderous in a great way. But I think, you know, like there is this sort of like element of Twitter that is, you know, devoted to do this. But in many ways, while I don't agree exactly with what is being said there on a one-to-one semantic level, I do agree with the sentiment that is there, which we can just see one for one, which is that, you know, people are very excited by Blue Heron. It won a few festival prizes. It has been reviewed extremely well. People who do go see it are incredibly emotionally moved by it. It is not going to move the needle financially against Obsession or Backrooms. You know, it'll be hard to and as this Twitter person pointed out, it is a hard movie to convince people to go see because it requires attention from the audience. I was very pleased at the screening that I went to. I think we both went to the IFC at different times.
Yep.
I went to a Sunday 3:00 screening. It was a full house.
Wow.
Packed in. People were like coming in. I was really concerned at some point, and I haven't been this way in a movie theater. Admittedly, it is a smaller movie theater. But there would be people standing because there was so few seats and people just kept coming in because people wanted to see the movie. So I was very pleased by that.
When I went with Patrick at 10:40 on a Tuesday at in the morning, mind you, we were the only two people in the theater.
Right.
But that's 10:40 on a Tuesday.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. So I am excited for that. We will get to some emails for this episode, but we're going to try a little bit of format changing right now on the fly, which is that we will read those emails at the end of the episode. So stay tuned for those hot take discussions about legal thrillers and potentially Warner Brothers hot takes regarding their back catalog involving one coyote.
Not everything is a hot take. I mean, they're great emails, but I don't know if I want to talk about the temperature of the takes in them.
Do you want to tell us what Blue Heron is about?
Well, I can't, Shahir, but of course the Internet Movie Database can tell us what Blue Heron is about. They say it is a family of 6 settles into their new home on Vancouver Island as internal dynamics are slowly revealed through the eyes of the youngest child.
And that would be Sasha in the film?
That is right.
But
full disclosure.
Yeah.
I, due to subway trouble, missed roughly the first 5 minutes of the movie, and there was no trailers before it.
Yeah, which I love.
So which is great when you're on time.
Yeah.
So I didn't. Patrick filled me in very briefly as to what happened, so I understand it. But just I always like to give the full thing before we go into it. And because we were in an empty theater, he could just tell me what happened.
Oh, he was just telling you.
Because no one else was there.
You guys were just having a grand old time chatting away in the movie. I am excited to talk about this one, but it is one that is like, as we kind of just sort of offline before we got to the episode. Kind of mentioned it's a hard one to discuss in terms of what our response is going to be, because a lot of this movie is experienced by watching it and feeling it. And my immediate responses had, you know, like even after I watched it, I felt very deeply moved by the film. But I was like, in terms of sitting down to talk about this for an hour, I am actually very curious how this conversation is going to go. Because
to the death,
we are going to fight over this Blue Heron. Because so much of it is executed with a kind of stillness. There's a huge degree of precision about this as well. It did remind me of Charlotte Wells's film After Sun from just a few years ago in terms of like that sort of understanding of memory and point of view being told very, very effectively. Like there's a shot from After Sun where we see only the reflection from a TV screen. And there's a lot of like very selective point of view that is very much from the point of view of Sasha in this film. The
cinematography in this film is truly, I think, sort of the MVP. I think it elevates. Again, the story's good. The acting is wonderful. The script is good. But there's something about the way that this world is shown to us that is essentially, even though not always from like the POV of Sasha, but it always feels like we're looking at a situation Sasha could be involved in through the lens of memory. And that means that it is imperfect. That means that it is a bit soft sometimes. Some of my favorite stuff is when they're like watching TV and they're trying to do like sort of a rack focus around the TV and like either the family in the living room or other things going on. There's a beautiful shot later on where a character's in a bathtub and there's an old movie that you're seeing on the reflection of the tile. Like there's so many pieces of imagery here that make you feel like you are less watching a film and more reliving a memory.
Yeah.
And that is that's something that is a little bit more Well, actually, no. It's actually persists throughout the entire movie. First, I was going to say it's more in the second half, but actually, what I really like, and we'll get into sort of that when we get into spoilers. There's a moment in this movie where that feeling sort of gets taken away, and we're in a different sort of space, and then we kind of bounce back and forth.
Yeah, and I think what we're getting at here is there's a tonal, structural, and temporal shift that happens in the second to third act of the movie, I guess you'd say. That reframes the events that we have just previously seen. And, again, this is, somewhat autobiographical. Sophie Rambari has, talked about the fact that this is really based on her experience growing up and her older brother, who has a different, who this isn't his name. Jeremy was not his name, but there was something else written, another name there. There was
something about Jeremy, and listen, I'm a '90s kid.
You did think about Pearl Jam.
Clearly, I remember picking on a ball.
I'll tell you what it is. It's the hair.
It's the hair, and it's the fact that it's a troubled teenager named Jeremy who has somewhat violent tendencies, and he spoke in class today.
Yeah, I felt the same way. I was like, that is clearly my specific reference point for this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it absolutely is. And so, as the setup kind of goes, Jeremy is the oldest sibling to three younger family members
from a previous relationship.
And the family is Hungarian by origin, but is moving into this Vancouver Island new home, and they are having difficulty adjusting. There is this sort of idyllic quality to sort of lazy summer days.
The 90s lifestyle, baby. Yeah. Back when Windows 3.1 and you were just playing with Microsoft Paint.
I think it was Windows 95, man.
You think?
I'm pretty sure that was a Windows 95 machine.
Was it?
Yeah, just because I remember the excitement around getting a Windows 95 machine with the start button.
Oh,
yeah. The start bar was the thing.
It's funny. The reason why I think it was, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
It's because he had the setting on that CRT monitor, like the resolution so low that the buttons were huge.
There's a funny story about that, which is I was listening to an interview that Sophie Rambari did on the way home from watching the movie. It was interesting because it was a very technical focused interview, but that is actually not a comped screen. They found in the production company an old working Windows 95 machine that fired up and you could kind of click around. I think what they did was they screen recorded elements, and so they have a CRT, a laptop playing back to that CRT, just so that the actor doesn't have to think about what am I doing here.
Oh, interesting.
It's common in movie. In UI, I did a course on UI design many years ago. It's very common that actors often aren't given real tools to play with unless there's some degree of interactivity. The really famous story of this is Minority Report, where a lot of it's based on Tom Cruise's finger gestures and what have you.
Like Wanda Maximoff or Doctor Strange. When they cast spells, they basically do a thing, and the VFX kind of is going around it.
I was speaking specifically of UI, so of user interfaces.
It's funny, but Tom Cruise is doing the same thing, but it's interacting with a UI.
Yeah, and UI design is actually a really huge component of a lot of movie production.
Magic is the UI of the soul, is what I'm saying.
Sure. Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of technical detail that went into that conversation, which I really enjoyed. The other reason why this film landed on my radar, no less than being advocated for another one of our favorite directors this year, or favorite directed films this year, which is Matt Johnson's Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie.
Yeah.
Sophie Rambari and Matt Johnson are friends. They've been on Q&As together. There is sort of this heralding of this meta quality films, but two very, very different styles of movies.
Canada.
And different styles of, storytelling. But there's a sort of clear fiction between these two filmmakers in terms of having their moments occur at the same time for the patently absurd, opposite reasons of happening. That all aside, the technical qualities of the film aside, I think the movie's sort of really piercing quality of reflection, its actual meta quality of breaking the film in half and looking back on itself, and then doing something quite extraordinary in the third half of in the final act of the movie, where memory and time kind of folds in on itself, and the character of Sasha kind of reinserts herself back into the past. without giving too much away, is pretty spectacular. And then it's all kind of not bookended, but like capped off by this really amazing idea of the person we don't see. And throughout the entire film, I had been thinking a lot about like, we are clearly hearing a lot about Jeremy and who he is and what problems he might be facing. And there's obviously this great tragedy in it, thinking about it as a parent and nowhere in that situation, but like the idea of having to protect 3 children from the 4th child and making like a really, awful decision to have to make in that scenario. But then it is capped off by this letter that is read at the very end of the movie, which kind of explains why the film has been so tight in perspective, because Sasha in the film is not privy to a lot of the things that are going on. And that letter is similarly an exploration of something that she is not privy to, which is the humanity of this person whom she spent so many years angry at. Unfortunately, he did pass away.
I don't know if she was angry at him.
She says, I spent most of my life being angry at you.
Does she?
Yeah, right at
the
beginning. And she does say it at the end as well.
Oh, so I didn't even...
Yeah.
Actually, wait, hold on. 1 second about the beginning, just to make sure I'm on the same path. Do we know that adult Sasha is recollecting from the beginning? Like, is there a voiceover or something?
There's a voiceover at the beginning.
Interesting. So I missed that, and that was something that Patrick didn't tell me. So I did not expect at all when it started going to present day Sasha. And in fact, when it did, I was like, what character is this? She has a smartphone now. What's happening?
The very first shot of the movie is a smartphone looking at it.
See, I didn't get that. And actually, to be honest, I think I prefer that. I think I prefer going in and having it do a switcheroo on me with no hint whatsoever.
Okay. I mean, I think seeing it as the director intended would be the way.
I'm saying my own personal enjoyment. I'm not saying like what is better. I'm saying like I really, because when the table turned or whatever, when it flipped the switch, I was like, wait, what's going? No, are they? Fuck the keychain. Whoa. And it really did like actually pull me more.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
But to be fair, you wouldn't have heard that the part of the monologue which he says, I've spent most of my life being angry at you. So which leads us to believe like there has been considerable harm done by this person.
Yeah, it's interesting because like in the
harm associated with this person.
Like when you see young Sasha with the family, she's witnessing a lot of issue.
Yeah.
But nothing affects her per se directly. And we don't, if there is, we don't really see it, which again is fine. I wouldn't have placed that without the line.
And she says, and I think, there's a sort of beautiful quality to the way the family is navigating this as well, which is that at times Jeremy can be awful to his siblings, and at times he can be really sweet. And we see a really sweet moment in this film, which is the sort of sprinkling of the flour over the family, which is photographed.
Yep.
And there's a sort of when they're
you're that dad.
What's that?
We're
taking photographs.
It's like, wait, stop! No matter what's going on, and if we're making a giant mess, I'm getting the camera.
Yeah, I would be that dad. And one of her short films called Still Processing. So the dad was actually a cinematographer, a trained cinematographer from Hungary. And he sent her for the film Still Processing. He sent her a box of undeveloped negatives because, and they're extraordinary photographs. So you get to see them all. Now, the sort of additional tragedy to the story is while there were 2 older brothers, then Sophie, the stand-in for Sasha, or the real life analog of Sasha, and their older brother, whose name I don't recollect right now, but
not Jeremy.
Is called Jeremy in this film. The oldest brother actually died as well. In probably through mental health issues before Jeremy passed away. But Jeremy, or the Jeremy real life analog, also, what happened to Jeremy did happen in the film, which is that he was sent away to another family and then kind of shifted around, and they didn't see him very much other than this, sort of often this sort of incredible letter that is that we talk about towards the end of the film. So I to be fair, I don't know what to say about it other than I was weeping. At the end of the movie, I was weeping as that story got told. As for spoilers here, as Sasha walks along the same beaches that she remembers as a child, and does so with the memory of Jeremy physically walking behind her, and still having that sort of like wry smile on his face, and reading this letter that basically says, I knew your brother when we were younger, and I thought he was cool. I liked him, like we were friends. I know he had some issues and what have you, but like this is this other side of him. And that's this like really tricky thing that I think that this family is dealing with, which is that his diagnosis, I think can be challenging. There's probably some, like they get into it here, which is that there's some vernacular for that has been developed over the years now that would probably put him either on the spectrum or with some kind of social anxiety or social function, executive function disorder or something like that. I don't know exactly. But those weren't available to that family at the time. And their parameters for thinking about how to navigate his needs are really based upon the safety of their other children and the fact that as he is significantly older than the other children, he is entering into this sort of age where those social anxiety or however, I don't have the DSV or whatever it is in front of me, but whatever the diagnosis is, has already kind of like embedded itself at that point.
They even bring up that like there's no one diagnosis for like he is in this particular case, and I'm guessing this is pulled from real life as well. There is no diagnosis. He is an edge case along like 9 diagnoses, and like it's they didn't have the terminology or whatever. And I think it's an interesting and excruciatingly horrible math. To sort of like to look at a family sort of making the decision who like, and we're presented with this family. They do either we are told or we are shown that they try kind of everything. And at a certain point, especially after there's a revelation that like Jeremy kept a can of gasoline in his room, and he always threatened to burn the house down and kill everyone. And there's a certain element of you have to kind of essentially like do the terrible arithmetic of deciding what is the safety, like how do you keep your family the safest? And if you have to decide like between 1 child and 3, like how off, like 5 for 5 people, right? Like how does a human do that? And we watch this family sort of just, especially, and I didn't even realize this while watching the movie, Adam Tompa and Iringo Rita play father and mother. I didn't even know they didn't have names. Right. I was like, okay.
From Sasha's point of view, I guess.
Yeah. No, exactly. And so you watch them and they're kind of falling apart in different ways. It feels like mother is essentially kind of doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and father has sort of like reverted into work / like being a voyeur into their lives more than a part of it in certain ways.
He's visual. He documents. That's what he does.
Yeah. And like it's just interesting to see like them have to decide to send this child away. And then there's the increased family political dynamic of like, well, this is a child from a previous thing and these other 3 aren't. And so like, how does that square into it? And then it's super interesting when we get to sort of see, again, for me, surprise adult Sasha, when she is like, she essentially is doing a focus group on essentially her brother's case with a bunch of caseworkers and therapists, it seems. And actually at that point in the movie, because I was so kind of like thrown for a loop, I was like, are these actors? Like I for whatever reason, I was like, I knew.
I don't think they are. I think they are actual trained therapists.
Yeah, because adult Sasha is an actress, and she played by Amy Zimmer, who did a phenomenal job. But then all of these therapists were very like real.
So Sophie Rivera again was in the Criterion Closet recently, and it's actually the second mention of this movie in recent memory. But the film that she picked out was The Watermelon Woman by Cheryl Dunye, which is actually in our conversation about High Fidelity, which we will be airing in some point after this. We've recorded that already. We should have also mentioned The Watermelon Woman as a really great example. That is a famous film about a video store clerk who works in a video store, a VHS store in that time, who finds the story of a African-American woman who was in the old sort of black mammy roles and wants to tell her story, which is The Watermelon Woman. And there's a beautiful quality to The Watermelon Woman, which is that there's a sort of filmmaker using the tools of documentary filmmaking within a fiction film to tell a story that is personal to them, which is really beautiful there. The other sort of film that comes to mind, I'm sure there's a couple more than this, but like Todd Solondz's film Storytelling, which actually features Mike from American Movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's great. You should check out that movie. It's basically a series of short films, and the second one, I think, is Paul Giamatti as a filmmaker making a documentary that becomes like really famous or something like that as well. It's really fascinating. So I think the reason I bring The Watermelon Woman is that, and this is true to Sophia Romveri's short films as well, is that she is very invested in the idea of the narrative film can have place for exploration of true of what would typically be done in a documentary. And she uses like the toolset of like essentially the Sasha character grows up to be a filmmaker and is making a documentary about like the childhood diagnosis of her older brother who's since then passed away. But then the reason why this is so brilliant and beautiful, and it's also like really not overplaying the hand of this, like I can imagine 1,000 other filmmakers making a big deal about the meta break of this film, but in this it's entirely seamless.
Yeah,
like you don't even really know what's happening until it's happened. But why this is so beautiful is that in the final act of the movie, Sasha then inserts herself into the history and becomes the
caseworker that went to the house that she overheard when she was a child.
Delivering this. And there's this incredible monologue that the mother gives in that moment about like this feeling of being cursed and this sense of like not knowing what to do in this scenario. And we have seen before this that the mother has already made the decision to put him into foster care. And, it comes suddenly, it feels sudden. And we don't really, as an audience, have the tool set to understand exactly why. Like we know bad things are happening. We know that he's disruptive. We know that he steals, but we don't exactly know what is going on. And
he hangs out at the gas station.
Yeah. Like he disappears on a dime and that sort of thing. And it's in this monologue that we really see the weight of all of this bearing down on her. And there's this incredible shot in that sequence where they're sitting down, they're having a conversation. The father gets up to leave, camera pans around and then looks into a reflection, which has then bifurcated their image. And they are now split into two people. And he comes back and sits down and this family has been splintered in this way. And, again, I would say 9 times out of 10, most filmmakers, myself included, would ham that up to no end. We would find every technical way, find every technical innovation we could muster in order to make that to make people really see the hook that we're trying here. But this is told very simply, very elegantly, without much of the sort of like fanfare that comes with the technical wizardry that I'm sort of talking about, and more it's just like, this is what we're doing at this moment. And I was like really kind of enchanted by that.
I think the technical wizardry is, I think it
is incredibly technically superbly made. I just mean, what I'm talking about when I say
it's flashy. They're doing it. They don't do it in a flashy way. Like
draws attention to it.
Yeah, and it's funny because like I see the value to both methodologies depending on the story you want to tell, and it's really nice to see this one. And I won't even call it like, it's not showing restraint. It's just, it's doing the exact technical wizardry to get across the emotion you really want while also not distracting from doing so. Like we talk about editing all the time, right? Like, editing is the best 9 times out of 10 when you don't notice it. until there's some cool fucking shot that's cut together so crazy or neat or cool. You're like, oh, like, and so this film is especially just, it's more of a wash over you as opposed to a like, hey, look at this.
And it's startling when it happens because the way it's done is kind of, it's kind of like the Lawrence of Arabia cut from Matchstick to Sunrise. It's this where it's like you're with this family. It's clearly 1980 or 1990 because we've seen a Windows 95 computer, and then all of a sudden there's a shot of an iPhone, and you're like, whoa!
I got confused.
Yeah, you're just like, whoa! What? It reminds me of that shot from Lawrence of Arabia. It reminds me in a way, far less ostentationally, but like the 2001 spinning the bone into the air that suddenly becomes a spaceship. You're like, what? We have jumped eons right now, and it is. It's fascinating to think about like all the change that has happened, and I think that thing that she's doing with the documentary, which is, what the Sasha character is doing with the documentary at this point, is also like, what are the new tools that would be around to navigate the scenario?
And something else I really appreciated, and this is a minor thing, but I appreciate it sort of after the fact, was when there's a scene in the first part of the movie that is then eventually revisited when Sasha goes and whispers something into her child self's ear or whatever.
Yeah. Lovely,
but
right?
They're watching television, and they're watching a thing that I do remember on TV in the 90s, which is the indoor hippo, like the baby hippo, the micro hippo.
Was it? And
I think it was a thing either on Nickelodeon or some other, it was like an interstitial for a cartoon show. And it was trying to teach kids, hey, here's something and we're going to present it to you like real. Well, guess what? It's not real. You can't believe everything you see. It's a PSA essentially. Yeah. And I really liked that. In the moment I was like, oh, ha, ha, ha. Like, I remember this. That's the time period and the kids would be watching it. But I was like, oh, this is instructing you how to watch this movie.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to sort of have that revelation sort of at the end of, or once I got surprised by it and be like, oh, that was a really nice way of priming you without, like, again, throwing it in your face.
Everything is well considered in terms of that. Like when they go to, when they go to the observatory at the beginning and we hear the voice, which
I didn't see.
Oh, you didn't? Oh no, this is 10 minutes in. They go to the observatory before they go to the beach, and they're wandering around the observatory.
Oh, I guess I did see that because they were still at home when I got there.
Yeah, and he steals the keychain.
Yes.
But in the observatory, they're talking about the blue heron, and they're talking about the fact that the blue heron eventually splits with its parents, and the bond is entirely severed, and the child's needs of the parent are no longer there.
Oh wait, maybe I didn't see that.
Right, but you just hear it. You just hear that happening. You hear that conversation going, and it's where.
Maybe I was walking in at that time.
Sasha realizes
that... Man, I saw a different movie.
Yeah, you watched Red Heron, Red Sparrow, the Jennifer Lawrence movie.
What a movie. One of the great one of the movies of all time.
It is certainly. It's amazing how like movies just disappear into the ether. Anyway, I think everything about this movie is really, really beautifully considered. This tweet about the feel bad movie, which is obviously tongue in cheek and what have you, but it is actually like surprisingly, I guess the way I look at this film is that the continuity of life is, it's unstoppable. Like life just continues on. And what is important is the way we navigate from one event to the other, because basically Sasha in this movie is still, considering and weighed down by the trauma of what happened to her that she doesn't quite fully understand. And what's beautiful is that the movie that we're watching is the character in the movie is making a movie or doing some kind of production to navigate that trauma. But the movie itself is that movie as well. And it is like this, it's this beautiful affirmation of why stories are important, like why storytelling is important, why the tradition of films are important, and why, I guess I got a little bit like choked up at the meta quality of this, thinking about like maybe the sort of first part of that tweet, which was, it is hard to get people to turn out for a movie like this because it's not built on the kind of easy thrills of going to a movie. Instead, though, I would say the thing is that it is beautifully enriching, and it is the reason why we go to movies.
Well, I wonder if, and I'm just sort of pontificating at this point, but that in a world where we're going to just be getting more and more slop 24/7, nom nom nom, eat it up. I wonder if there will be a push, probably not one that moves like a giant monetary needle, but something that like pushes us back into spaces like for these kind of things. Because what used to happen in especially like mid-budget films, I feel like, is you would get large emotional catharsis from a movie that was also a thriller or also a comedy, or also like there's moments of things that like meaning there was like actual deep meaning and stuff, and it wasn't just like content for content's sake. And now I wonder if there's like, and there's still those two every once in a while, but
this is actually, sorry to,
I was gonna say, like, I'm just curious if that split, if that dichotomy will become more like more people will hunt it out because it doesn't exist other places.
Well, and this is why I still really, while on one hand, at this time of the year in particular, we will often pay attention to what the box office of a movie is and what's, trending and what have you. But I specifically, and, what I hope we do on this podcast as well, is really celebrate the things that, like, and essentially what film festivals kind of do,
sure.
which is be a venue for places like this so that conversations can be had about this movie continuing from one festival to the other. And in a way, as much as the Oscars are a masturbatory kind of exercise, there is the moments where a film like After Sun, gets mentioned in the Oscar conversation. And that's why we get to go see those movies and we start talking about those movies. And hopefully, I don't know if Blue Heron's going to have the sort of Oscar campaign around it, but that's why the Oscars matter in terms of like our cultural cachet, is that and why in some ways when they have things like the blockbuster success Oscar or whatever it is, the Oscar that celebrates the box office success of a movie, that's,
they have that.
Yeah, they have that. Black Panther was nominated or something like that last year.
Well,
and
Black Panther wasn't nominated last year.
I sorry, I might be misremembering.
I'm confused.
Yeah, but like, there's that conversation around the sort of the cultural success Oscar, whatever it's called.
And there is,
and we had a conversation about it around the time of the Oscars, and it was like my comment about it was, it's like you're giving a prize to the winner of the prize already. We actually took a little break there.
You mean the thing you found that isn't the Oscars?
But it's the Golden Globe. And there was a proposal for this at the Oscars in 2018 called the Academy of Motion Arts Sciences proposed an Outstanding Achievement in Popular Film Oscar. It was quickly slashed away. But there was, in its wake, a Golden Globe Award for Cinematic and Box Office Achievement Oscar. And, like, whatever, every award show can do whatever it wants to do.
Chicken jockey.
Yeah, it's the Minecraft award for the most importance while making the most money. But I think that also in some small way, our capacity to talk to people about, hey, this movie Blue Heron alongside a movie like Obsession, because we're doing first time filmmakers like 3 back to back in a row right now. I think is worthy of a conversation in terms of like, these are what's worth your time.
Because next week is Backrooms.
Yeah, which is a Kane Parsons film.
Yeah.
Both to the Obsession and Backrooms are A24 movies. They're heralded for the young filmmakers, what have you. But
there's a drama, there's a family drama and a horror sandwich.
Yeah. And those films are, the distinction is that those films have increasingly larger marketing budgets, which is how those films get, generate word of mouth. And like that tweet kind of mentioned, is based on essentially, horror, which is fun. I really loved Obsession, and I think it's a great movie. And I think it's a place here for the conversation to include Blue Heron as well. And a deeply moving, quiet movie about the way in which movie making can help navigate trauma and navigate the past in beautiful ways.
I will say, I feel like we've been, and rightfully so, praising the film a bunch. I think this is it's weird to say this, but this is like a movie fan's movie. I could see a general audience member, not everybody, of course, but like someone who's not interested in filmmaking or films in general, not vibing with, or not, vibing is the wrong word, because I think it still does work on a just purely storytelling level, but like that extra layer of like being so clever without throwing the cleverness in your face kind of thing. I think that doesn't work on everyone. And again, but I also, to be very clear, I don't think every movie should be for everyone or it should work the same for everyone and stuff like that. But if I was to like, we often talk about like, oh, would we suggest this movie, a movie to people?
Yeah.
And I would unequivocally to most people be like, oh yes, absolutely. But some of them I might be like, but it's a slow burn and it's a family drama. So like, you're in the mood for that before you go forward.
I think I recall you saying so. You had a friend that only watched Vin Diesel movies or something like that, or you knew someone.
What a cool friend.
Yeah, and I was like, and to that person, this might not be the movie for them. But not to say that they shouldn't try it. You know, like that if they're interested in movies beyond just.
This is a movie that I would suggest anyone check out, but some people I might be like, I don't know if you're going to dig it. But that doesn't mean that there's not value to that person who might not dig it while watching this movie.
But then it's interesting as well because the movie, the other part of this that I do really love and the reason why I would be more inclined to suggest everyone go see it is that there's a specificity of storytelling here. Like this is really specifically about one person's experience and how mining that really specific thing that happened to them comes through. And I think, as Roger Ebert kind of talked about, movies are an empathy machine because they allow you to basically navigate somebody else's life. And what I think to that person, that hypothetical person that, may not vibe with this, what have you, that person has an inner life to them and inner thoughts and trauma and love and joy and sadness and all that sort of stuff. And the movie can be a gateway to being like, oh, art can actually make me reflect upon those things in interesting ways. And that's, like we're sort of not talking about Blue Heron now. We're just talking about why it's important to go to the movies in general. But
I think we're talking about Blue Heron. I think the meta commentary on processing your life and grief through film while watching a person make the film that's about the life that you lived. Like, I think that whole thing is very much about this movie.
Yeah.
Like, I think this movie works the best when you do have an audience member who is paying attention to those sort of things and like is it not only paying attention because you can very easily glean this, but that like finds those things important. I think you could 1,000% have an emotional connection to this movie and not find that specific element important, but it could still function in that way. I think this is I think people who are, I don't even know how to put it, but like cinephiles or movie people, if you're listening to this podcast, you're the kind of person that's going to get every bit of the drop of meaning out of Blue Heron, right? Yeah. I don't know if everyone will. And again, that's not the movie's problem, and that's not really a person's problem. It's just kind of people, right?
Well, because like to that extent, I often talk about like how a film will make me think about things I'm going through or thinking about, in my head. And I don't have the tool set, or I don't have any lived experience that in any way resembles exactly what this family is going through. But I took value out of experiencing it and empathizing with it, and then I think in a weird way, which is, the sort of capitalist way to think about it, it's given me a tool set to think about, should I encounter something like this in the future? Or should I have to like navigate it? And like, one of the things about being a parent that like, I think I showed you while we were hanging out the other night, like the group chat for the school.
Oh yeah.
And like the dramas that are going on in that. And like, what's fascinating about that is that you're in a virtual group chat with parents whose lived experiences are so, and their concerns and things that they fixate about are so wildly different to you. But at the same time, they have one thing in common, which is that I know every single one of them loves their child very deeply and wants the best for their child. They're just navigating in different ways, and they have a different frame of reference. And what I love about movies and going to the movies and like seeing movies that are not specifically about my lived experience is that it forces me to have to like navigate somebody else's lived experience. And it gives me like a sort of interesting either guide, reference point, tool set, whatever, or just, a way to think about like other people's lived experiences. We were talking about our weddings, our respective weddings. And it's such a specific thing, that there've been countless movies made of. And it's fascinating to hear you talk about it in terms of like, I do. I remember this part of it, and I don't remember this part of it. And this part of it, I've never had to deal with, but I can see you're dealing with this, and that's interesting. Like it's it's like a fascinating way, and that's what movies are, and that's why movies are great.
I think we just solved why people should still make movies.
It's hard. It's increasingly. I was talking to somebody else today about our 600th episode, and one of the observations that person made, which I thought was so spot on, is that they were saying that in their younger years, they found that they would define themselves by certain movies. Like they would like identify with that is my movie, and they were like, but as I've gotten older, I don't do that anymore. I don't have that. And they were like, well, it might be just because of age, but it also might be that we don't define ourselves by movies anymore. My child does not define himself by any particular medium.
But I would posit that it actually is age, because it's not. It might not just be movies. I remember myself and every kid that I've ever seen does define themselves by, like, the first identity that we all have in whatever groupness that we're involved in is based on interest.
Yeah.
Like it could be sports, it could be movies, it could be music, it could be video games, it could be a trillion different books, whatever. Yeah. Like, and or pop culture, anything. Like I based my existence on sort of goth culture and nerdy stuff specifically, and I found a lot of who I was and like the value of, like, I would be able to, again, going back to an episode you haven't listened to yet, but High Fidelity, like, you're this characters that define themselves based on the specific kinds of music that they can list in top 5 lists. Like that's a young person's game, because you're still developing and figuring out who you actually are, and while you do that, you fill in the cracks with the media that you love. In our case, obviously it's films, but like, I think that's a true thing for anybody. And I agree with your friend's sentiment about I'm having a hard time picking what we have an idea for 600, but like what my movie for that would be, and all will be revealed shortly, listeners. But the it's an age thing, because you become who you are, and then you don't need the training wheels of whatever thing you love to help define you anymore.
So then you fly on your own,
like a beautiful bird
Heron
that's on a keychain. That's from a store, and then a sandcastle, then a literal keys.
Isn't it the act? You've got the actor's name in front of you. The actor who plays Jeremy in this is.
Edic Bedos.
What an incredible piece of casting that is. I do believe, I think I read somewhere that this is their first film, and what an incredible piece of casting in terms of like the smile and like the ability for that smile to be unnerving. I think it's part and parcel with the filmmaking, but like there's a sense of like, oh, that kid's got like a really great smile. Is like this, tall, gangly kid with, really great glasses and what have you. But it's like, it's very unnerving when they continue to smile in a way, or they ignore what's going on around them, or they seem blissfully unaware of what's happening, or the reactions to their behavior. Like I'm thinking about when the family, when he wanders off while they're at the beach, and then he goes back to the gas station, or he goes to a gas station, and he's just kind of like having a conversation, smiling. And it's like, it is unnerving how unaware he is of what is happening around him. And that is clearly part of the diagnosis problem here, is that, I'm not sure what that is. Like, whether his learning a lot of this is for children is measured against their capacity to learn, because their capacity to learn informs their ability to progress alongside their peers. And if they don't have a good capacity to learn, then they will fall behind their peers, and that can be a real problem. But so I don't know, where the film landed. Well, they do talk about the fact that like he didn't do well at school. They tried homeschooling. They tried a bunch of things, and like they're still having problems with it. So
he loves maps, though.
But he has this incredible thing. It made me think of the song that I listened to on the way home from the movie theater was from Daniel Johnson. I don't know if you ever saw The Devil in Daniel Johnson. It's a documentary about Daniel Johnson, the singer-songwriter who would make these cassette tapes. Amazing story about Daniel Johnson was a cassette tape. Is like, he clearly had some sort of inability to navigate social constructs in a way, but he wrote these incredible songs that are well known today. But he didn't he would make cassette tapes of them, but he would like re-record the whole song for each cassette tape that he would make. So instead of like dubbing it,
right, he would play it again.
He'd just play it again and do it. And it also made me think of, I think it's the Jardin girls or the Desjardins girls, I think it was. There's a famous story, another documentary about a janitor. I believe he was a janitor who lived, kind of his whole life alone and isolated. But when he passed away, they found this sort of entire fascinating novels and comics and everything that he'd written in his apartment, and they were published and became like these cult phenomena. But he just like wrote in his own world. I'll find I think they were called the Darjeeling Girls or something like that.
I don't know.
But it made me think of that with Jeremy, because he's clearly in the film. Jeremy doesn't have or has a social dysfunction, and I mean that in terms of like his ability to navigate what is happening around him is in some ways challenged. But he has this beautiful understanding of location and he draws these maps and they really fascinate him. It's like at some point you're just like, oh, it's like with Daniel Johnson. Could you channel something into that specific interest of them that they have?
Cartography.
Yeah, cartography. Yeah.
I don't know. This movie is pretty great. I think you get that from our discussion today, dear listener. If you don't, then I'm sorry. I don't know if we did it right, but it's interesting. It's all film is experiential. However, this is a difficult one to sort of quantify as to why you should see it and what you'll get out of it. It's a litmus test of sort of what you will glean and take away from it. And I think that's pretty neat. I think that overall, that is a valuable piece of cinema to engage with. And I don't know. I hope you do. If you haven't already, this deep 50 minutes into this podcast.
The person I was thinking of was Henry Darger, by the way, and the documentary is called Realms of the Unreal, which I watched years ago.
The Darjeeling Unlimited.
The Dargers, yeah. And it was, you have to, Jeremy's artwork in this film reminded me so much of Henry Darger. And I might be wildly off base in terms of the diagnosis and what have you. And Henry Darger was not a danger to society as far as I understand. He was, the description here is an eccentric and extremely socially isolated artist who died completely unknown. And when they opened up his apartment after he died, they found these entire volumes of work sit in these worlds. They were called the Darger, and they were slightly unnerving because they were about, this was like a 50 or 60-year-old man.
They're called the Christophers.
And his stories were all about little girls. And so there was something slightly unnerving about it. But when they published them, they found that people really loved these stories, and they were quite incredible. So yeah, Henry Darger. That's what this film made me think about. I really loved the experience of watching Blue Heron. I agree that there's a subtlety to this film that can make it challenging. Like there are things happening in this movie that you don't even realize are happening until the moment has clearly passed. But what I love about it, in the same way that I love, Charlotte Wells's film After Sun or Barry Jenkins' Moonlight, is the moment stays with you afterwards and you walk away from it thinking about it.
It's a movie that grows in you.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of extraordinary and worth celebrating.
Yeah. Well, this has been the only podcast about the film Blue Heron. But before we go, we're going to read a few emails.
Yeah, thanks to everyone who wrote us in at onlymoviepodcast@gmail.com. Do you want to take the first one?
Let's see here. Joe writes in, "Hi, my name is Joe, huge EC fan for the nearly last decade." Thank you very much, Joe. Appreciate that. I only just started binging the podcast when on your top 10 lists, etc. Oh, very nice. I wanted to reach out and ask if you're going to see Coyote versus Acme in August. Absolutely love the podcast. Keep crushing it. Thank you, Joe. I would love to.
I would love to do a double feature of Coyote versus Acme with Batgirl.
I mean, Batgirl, sadly,
but the running gag was that they canned Coyote versus Acme. It looks fascinating.
Yeah. I wouldn't mind doing a triple feature with Coyote versus Acme, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Cool World.
Wow, the Brad Pitt film?
Yeah.
I remember that. Yeah.
All this animation mixed with real life stuff. And I know Space Jam kind of counts, but like I don't.
The meta crossing over into the cartoon world interests me less as much as do you know what the hook of Coyote versus Acme is? Is like Wile E. Coyote sues Acme Corporation because all his stuff doesn't work. I am an absolute nut for Looney Tunes. I love Looney Tunes cartoons. Like far more than Disney. Looney Tunes cartoons were the things I grew up on. When I taught Film 101, the first thing I would show was Duck Amuck, the Daffy Duck cartoon where he's like wandering through different scenarios. Mm-hmm. So I love that world, the Looney Tunes world, because of how subversive and weird it is and how strange it is. So I think the idea that someone, is going into that world and doing something, I'm fascinated.
I'm sure we'll do it.
Is it going to be good? I don't know. But like Duck Amuck, in my opinion, I think it's Chuck Jones who directed it.
Yes, that
is one of the greatest films ever made. Yep. In my humble opinion, it's only 6 minutes or something like that.
Sure.
Please watch Duck Amuck, which is Daffy Duck navigating a world around him that is changing in ways that he cannot explain.
Yeah, just like our own world. Shahir, can you please read us the next email?
Hassan writes in, hope you're doing well. First of all, many congratulations to Matt for your upcoming wedding. I hope you're showing everyone Samurai Cop as a prank at your wedding. You remember Hassan loves to show movies to try and get people out of the room. He continues, damn, maybe I should have done that when I got married. Anyway, so I recently subscribed to the Criterion channel and I got to see a lot of cool films, including the previously mentioned 1959 Ben-Hur and Buster Keaton's The General, which just breaks my brain for how they made it and how nobody died while shooting it. However, last week I saw Sidney Pollack's film The Firm, which was part of their corporate thriller collection. What a terrific and beautiful looking film. And while watching it, it occurred to me that why don't we make legal thrillers anymore? I think Michael Clayton, also starring Sidney Pollack, might just be the last great legal thriller we got in cinema. No. I also saw K-pop Demon Hunters and through my daughters loved it and can't stop singing Golden all day, every day. I thought it was all right. I'm also half an hour into Hayao Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron. Close tied to this week's film. And man, after all these years, the man has not lost his touch. Wish you all the best. P.S. My mom found out my prank with showing the guests The Thing, and I'm permanently banned from being near the TV whenever the guests are at home.
Aww.
Bummer. I reached back to Hassan and mentioned the fact that a legal thriller that I love that we did on the podcast just recently was Anatomy of a Fall.
Yep.
I love
that's probably the last one I've thought.
Yeah. And I love. Have you seen The Firm?
Yeah.
There's a scene in The Firm. I don't know if you remember, and because I watched it a couple of years ago. There's a scene in The Firm where Tom Cruise is walking down the street and a kid walks past him who's doing backflips. And all of a sudden, Tom Cruise decides to do backflips down the street. It is the most unhinged shit I've ever seen where you're just like, what is happening in this movie? It's also a great Gene Hackman performance. I love, and Janine Triplehorn, I believe, who, we saw in Waterworld. I read the John Grisham novel at the time. And I remember that novel was profoundly successful. That was The Firm was such a huge deal at the time. But I wrote back with a couple of my favorite corporate thrillers or legal thrillers in no particular order. JFK, Witness for the Prosecution, The Insider, which I absolutely love, 12 Angry Men, a movie that, and here's a movie that I don't think is very good, but Body of Evidence. I don't remember if you
God.
William Dafoe and Madonna. And it was kind of like in that period of the 90s where, particularly around Sharon Stone, it's like, let's be sexy. Mm-hmm. Sharon Stone and Michael Douglas. Aaron Brockovich, The Verdict, and Philadelphia. And then this is a really special one for me, which listeners of the podcast, if you can go out and find this movie, I would be so excited. It is a Judd Nelson movie. I think it's by Aaron Spelling or one of the guys who became a
spelling joint
or one of the guys who ended up doing LA Law or something like that, legal long-standing dramas. But this movie called From the Hip. And it's about Judd Nelson, who's a young hotshot attorney who fakes his way into becoming one of the most requested criminal attorneys in the city, only to take on a trial that will test his will.
Wow.
I think John Hurt plays the villain in this film. I have not seen this film since I was a kid. I believe I saw it in 1989 or something like that. I would be fascinated if anyone could find that movie and watch it and tell me if it still holds up. I'll put it alongside another movie I requested a while back, Made in Heaven, about two people who die and go to heaven and have to re-find each other. These are movies from my childhood that I think might be terrible, but really hold a special place
Sure.
in my heart, you know?
Yeah, I jumping back to the legal drama
Right.
kick.
Yeah.
I don't think I have any that like I gravitate toward a lot that isn't also another kind of movie. So the two that come to mind, honestly, are My Cousin Vinny.
Oh, yeah, that's a great,
Which is technically a legal drama, but it's also a comedy.
It's not technically, that is a legal drama, yeah.
And then now I'll stretch it a little bit further because vanity is definitely my favorite sin.
Vanity is definitely my favorite.
Come on.
I'm struggling.
He's laughing his sick fucking ass off. He's a tight ass. He's a sadist.
I'm feeling that's an Al Pacino.
Devil's advocate.
It's the Devil's Advocate.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. That's not a stretch at all. That is a legal thriller.
I know.
That is about the dilemma of a lawyer.
But my point is, I always need a little something extra with my legal dramas.
Yeah.
Either if it's a comedy or a supernatural twist. It's just sort of what it is. Although I loved Anatomy of a Fall. So
yeah, I love that. I think the Devil's Advocate is one of the. There's a run of movies in the early 2000s where basically every young actor has to test their mettle against Al Pacino.
Sure.
There's Two for the Money with Matthew McConaughey. There's Scent of a Woman with who played Robin in Batman and Robin.
Chris O'Donnell.
Chris O'Donnell. There's Devil's Advocate with Al Pacino. I think every young actor,
Yeah, Reeves, baby.
has to go up against Al Pacino at some point to test their
I should
work.
look and see if I can find Devil's Advocate on 4K. I bet you it's like $5.
I rewatched scenes of it again, and it is wild. And it's wild, like, in this early Keanu Reeves period. Like, I know we love Keanu Reeves now, but you got to remember there was a time when people were like, Keanu Reeves, an actor? I don't know, man.
What are you talking about? He didn't light the world on fire, or Speed, or Constantine?
Speed. So Speed and Bill and Ted's were like, oh, this is Keanu Reeves' lane. But he then tried to do like A Midsummer Night's Dreams or 12th Night or one of those things as well. Dracula, and then things like The Devil's Advocate where he's up against Al Pacino, and it's like, oh. Yeah. Okay. All right. Sure. Yeah.
Fine.
Fun. Devil's Advocate. We should absolutely do again. There's a scene on a subway train, which I keep seeing memed every now and again.
Okay.
Where he's like, Al Pacino is basically speaking in Spanish and like telling people like the dirty little secrets and things like that. And he's having so much fun. This is like the real hoo-ha period of Al Pacino's career.
But when he gets to play the devil.
Yeah. It's so great. It's so much fun.
I used to know way more. Those are off the cuff that I just did now. But
Man,
I used to know every fucking line of that movie.
I didn't recognize the lines, but I recognized like this is Al Pacino.
I'm doing something.
Yeah. And it could either be this or Scent of a Woman.
Oh yeah, the next line is he's a tight ass, he's a sadist, he's an absentee landlord.
Yeah.
Worship that never.
He's describing God as an absentee landlord.
I like he gets another thing where he's talking about men and how they're fallacy. He goes, I'm a fan of man. And I'm like,
it's great, right?
It's a really fun movie.
Al Pacino, so much fun.
Oh, anyway. All right. Well, next week we're going to invite you into the back rooms. It's going to be creepy.
Liminal?
Yeah, it is. It'll be liminal.
Yeah.
I am a fucking huge fan. I'll talk about this more next week. I am a huge fan of liminal space stuff. There is a wonderful, very short, you can play it regular or you can play it in VR. Experience called Pools, and it's 6 levels.
I've played it.
Have you?
Yeah,
have you done it in VR? Or you just played it on flat?
I haven't done it in VR, but I have.
VR is different.
Yeah,
and it is a delight. It has no jump scares unless you make them by accident.
It just makes you unnerved.
Yeah, and I really, really like it. So I'm looking forward to seeing the cinematic take on these internet phenomenons.
Yeah.
It'll be good. All right. Until then, we'll talk at you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Shit, you hear we forgot. Where can folks find you?
Suvanova.com, that SUVANOVA. Matt, where can people find you?
Extra credits, extra history on YouTube. We'll do it better next time. We're not used to this new format.